In 1865, the Civil War ended. 4 million enslaved African Americans were finally free. The chains were gone, but so was everything else.
No land, no savings, no property, no protection. Freedom had arrived, but fortune had not.
When slavery ended, formerly enslaved families did what anyone would do. They searched for loved ones torn apart by auction blocks and plantation sales. Husbands looked for wives. Mothers searched for children. Families walked hundreds of miles hoping to reunite. But survival couldn't wait. They needed land. There was a promise, whispered across the South. 40 acres and a mule. It came from a Union order meant to redistribute Confederate land to freed families.
For a brief moment, thousands of black families began farming their own plots. Then the order was reversed.
President Andrew Johnson returned most of that land to former Confederate owners. The dream of land ownership collapsed almost overnight.
So what did freedom look like without land? It looked like sharecropping. Under sharecropping contracts, black families worked the same plantations they had been enslaved on. Instead of wages, they received a portion of the crop, often after paying for tools, seeds, and supplies at inflated prices. On paper, it looked like independence. In reality, it was debt. If the harvest was weak, they owed money. If cotton prices dropped, they owed money. If the landowner claimed expenses were higher than expected, they owed money. Year after year, many families found themselves trapped in cycles of poverty that looked painfully familiar. Slavery had ended. Economic control had not. And yet, this was not just a story of hardship. It was also a story of extraordinary ambition. During Reconstruction, African Americans entered politics for the first time in U.S. history. Over 2,000 black men held public office between 1865 and 1877. They became state legislators, congressmen, sheriffs, and school board members. They helped rewrite Southern state constitutions. They pushed for public education systems, not just for black children, but for poor white children too. Public schools in the South expanded dramatically during Reconstruction, and black lawmakers played a key role. For the first time, democracy was being reimagined. Freedmen also built institutions from the ground up. Churches became more than places of worship. They became community centers, banks of trust, political organizing spaces, schools. Historically black colleges and universities like Howard, Fisk, and Morehouse were founded during this era. These institutions would go on to produce doctors, lawyers, scientists, and civil rights leaders. With almost no resources, black communities pooled money together to buy land collectively, start small businesses,
form mutual aid societies to support widows and orphans. They were building an economy from scratch.
But resistance was fierce. White supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan used violence to intimidate voters and destroy progress. Black codes were passed to restrict movement, employment options, and civil rights. When Reconstruction officially ended in 1877, federal troops withdrew from the South. Protection disappeared. Jim Crow laws began to tighten. Segregation hardened. And economic opportunity narrowed once again. By the early 1900s, black Americans owned only a small fraction of the nation's wealth. The land they were denied in 1865 would have been passed down, generation to generation.
Instead, wealth accumulation was delayed, not by lack of effort, but by deliberate policy decisions.
But here's what history proves. Despite systemic barriers, black Americans did not remain passive. They farmed. They taught. They governed. They organized. They saved what little they could.
And slowly, community by community, they laid the groundwork for future generations. Reconstruction may have been short-lived,
but the institutions built during that time, churches, colleges, civic organizations, still stand today. They became anchors.
They became strategy centers. They became the foundation for the civil rights movement decades later. Freedom in 1865 was incomplete. It was legal freedom without economic security, political rights without protection, opportunity without capital. But even without fortune, African Americans began doing something extraordinary. They started building again, from nothing. And the story of American economic power cannot be told without understanding this chapter, when freedom arrived, but wealth did not.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.